BandLab is a free cross-platform music creation tool that allows you to use your Windows PC, your Mac, your Android, your iOS device and create music. And in this video, I'm going to show you how we can use not only the included instruments and virtual instruments, but how you can add your own vocals and guitar tracks here in BandLab. Let's do it. A big thanks to BandLab who are sponsoring this video, and if you missed the first video about getting started with BandLab, that one is linked up the top there and down in the description. In that first video, I showed you how we can use virtual instruments, the drum machine, the sampler, BandLab sounds, and even your own imported audio in your tracks. In this one, we're looking at voice and audio, guitar, and bass. Let's start by adding a voice and audio track by clicking on this one, and here we are, we're ready to record. Here is our voice and audio track. Now down the bottom here, you'll see it's selected auto pitch, which we can use if we want to. We'll talk about that a bit later. But the important one here is source. So we'll click over to source because we need to make sure that we select the right input. Now, if you're using a computer that just has the inbuilt microphone, that's fine. You do want to make sure you're using headphones though, so you're not going to get bleed. If you're playing it through speakers, that's going to come into whatever microphone you're using, including the inbuilt one. Now, I happen to have my Scarlett 2i2 USB interface ready to go. So I'm going to select that, and you can select channel 1 or 2. I'm going to plug the microphone into channel 1. So let's do that now. So we're plugged in and ready to go. If I talk into the microphone, you can see this meter showing that we're getting audio coming through at a decent level. You want that about 50 to 70% there. And if we click this monitoring button, you can now hear that I'm coming through both microphones. The other thing that we can do is turn on effects. So if you want a audio signal that's not just clean, click on effects and we can choose a preset here. So let's just grab something, maybe just like a 70s pop preset here. And now when we talk, you can hear that it's going through this Amp Pro and this multicab and the EQ and the compressor there. We can change the effects, so you can add your own individual effects. So say we wanted a little delay on this as well. Let's go with this digital delay. We could get something like that. So that's probably not what we want to go with here. We're going to come out of there. Let's find a better preset for this. Okay, I've settled on this large studio reverb preset, which just has a studio reverb, a compressor, and a little EQ on there. So I think that's going to be a nice subtle preset for us to use to record through. So we're all set up now. We're ready to hit the record button and record in our microphone. Cheesy pop done. So now we can come back to our source. We can turn off the monitoring, otherwise we'll be hearing that all the way through. We can solo to take a listen to what this audio is going to sound like by itself. Not bad, yeah? So the quality is pretty good because, again, we're going through the focus, right? Your quality will vary depending on the microphone you're using. And what we can now do is adjust this in any way we like. So we can actually come in here and double click on this one. It's going to drop us into our waveform. We can do funky things like reverse it if we wanted to. We can change the playback rate too. So we can actually change the speed, which is pretty cool if you wanted to do that. I don't know why you'd want to in this case. And we can even shift the pitch. So if you wanted to have some fun here, you could shift this up and down. And what if we wanted to chipmunk me up a little bit? Let's take this up to 12 semitones, which is a full octave, and bring it back into the mix just for a little bit of fun. Okay, not what we really want here, but you know what, you could use this for some cool effects and things if you're trying to hit those high notes that you can't quite get to. The other thing that you saw when we were setting up, as we just bring this back down to 0 here, is that auto pitch. So if you do want to use a tuning, a Melodyne, an auto tune like thing, you have auto pitch on here. So let's solo this vocal again. The reason I did these notes up the front here is so that we could hear this. So if we enable this, we turn it on with the button there, what you'll notice is that as these notes come in, it's going to actually adjust them. So we can set the project key here. It's in G major, so we know that that's matching our key. So it should bring these notes and match them up. Let's take a listen. So if that's the sound you're going for, more power to you. And of course, you don't have to use that heaviest amount. We can drop it down a bit. So if you just need the slightest bit of help with your notes, you can drop that one down to a light auto pitch. And now, oh, 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 and it's just going to give you that little bit of help that you might want there with your vocals and recording. So pretty cool, pretty easy to get your vocals recorded here in BandLab. Okay, it's time for guitars. So we're going to plug in my guitar to channel 2 of my audio interface and get recording. Let's jump in here, hit the add track button, and this time choose guitar. So there is our guitar track added at the bottom there. Now, once again, we want to hit the source button here, and this time we actually want it to be on channel 2, because remember, channel 1 is our microphone on this audio interface. If we strum the guitar now, it's coming through there, but we're not hearing it. Why? Because we don't have our monitoring on. So if we hit the monitoring button now, there is our guitar ready to rock and roll. Now, BandLab actually has some very cool guitar amp simulators built in. So if we click on the effects button here, we drop down our preset, we can choose from any of these. Let's go with, say, an ambient clean tone. And if we play this one here, so on this one, you can see we've got the noise gate here, we've got the multi-amp, we've got the multi-cab pro, we've got some digital delay here, we've got some EQ, we've got some reverb, we've got a compressor. So there's a whole bunch of stuff going in to that tone, and you can play around with all these different presets. I think with this one, we want a bit of a jazz tone. So let's put on the jazz tone here and see what this one's like. Maybe up like that. So what we can do now is record in this guitar sound. So we're monitoring our guitar, we're ready to record. All we need to do now is hit the record button and play in some guitar. All right, so we've got a couple of problems here. Number one is our guitar is a little bit quiet, so I'm going to go over to my audio interface and turn that up a little bit. You want to get a nice balanced sound without going too loud and clipping. The other thing is my guitar is out of tune, which BandLab has a solution for. Okay, our volume is up a little bit, but what about that tuning? Well, guess what? We've got built right in here in the source section. You'll notice there's this tuner button, so we're going to click on this one, and look at this. We got ourselves a chromatic tuner built right in here to BandLab, and there's the problem. We're 18 cents sharp on our E. So I'm going to tune up here and make sure that this guitar is in tune, and then we're going to re-record this part. Okay, quick editing here before we record. We just want to click on this one and hit the delete key to remove it. We could have, of course, also used undo. Let's hit the record button again and record in this part. And we are done. So that waveform looks a lot better this time, and our recording's pretty cool here. Let's solo this and take a listen to just this guitar. I like the tone, I like it, but you know what? There's one problem here, and that is this very first bit is a bit chopped off because we're strumming. So here's a tip that's going to help you out. If we just close off on that, what we can actually do is move all of these across one bar to give us a little bit of lead in here. So a couple of ways we can do this is to click out here and drag over all of these tracks and then just drag them over. You could also use Control A or Command A to select all tracks. And now, as well as our 1 bar count in, we're going to have a bar of empty here at the start, because when you're playing a guitar and you're strumming, it's not playing it because I'm not on here now, but if we play a guitar, I'm starting just before that first note. So we want to make sure that we actually play it and it records the little bit that's going in there. See how it's kind of chopped off there? We want to make sure we get every little bit. So we're going to delete that and do it one more time here. Go back to the start here, hit the record button, and let's record this one more time with feeling. that's much better. And you can see that that very first part, see how if we go there, that little bit that's just in front of there is going to make this sound a lot better. Very cool. The other thing you might have noticed I did was turn the metronome back on before I did that recording. I actually turned our master volume down a little bit because I was clipping. The problem is when you start adding a bunch of tracks all at maximum volume, you're going to end up being too loud. So keep an eye on that and make sure you turn down your track volumes or your overall volume as you're recording. Let's record a little funky lead guitar part while we have our guitar plugged in. So once again, we're going to hit add track. We're going to go to guitar, and this time I want an effect that's going to be more of a kind of funky lead tone with a little bit more like of a phaser, or what about this spring phase? This could be interesting for a little lead part. Now again, we'll go to our source, make sure we're on channel 2, and then just make sure that our guitar's working. That's not bad. I want more of a chorus tone actually, so let's try again. Let's go to effects and let's find one of our chorus. What about just a straight stereo chorus? Nice. I like it. Let's go with this one. So we're going to cue this back up here and let's record in some lead guitar. So there you go. Now, as we were recording that, you may have noticed that there were a few little artifacts or clicks and pops that come in there. Don't worry too much about that. That's usually caused by the fact that we've got a whole lot of tracks here, a whole lot of effects. So if you want to try and reduce that, you can do things like turn off your effects, or you can reduce the number of tracks, maybe mute out some tracks while you're recording so that you're not putting as much load on the system. Now, I started a little early on this guitar, so I also want to use our trim tool to reduce it. So all we have to do this is click here and drag across and just drop that about there, and there you go. It'll reduce that amount. You can do that at the end of your tracks too if you want to clean things up there. Let's solo these two guitars and take a listen to them. Now, because we've got two guitars, let's do a little bit of basic panning here, shall we? So I'm going to pan this guitar, our sort of rhythm sound that's just doing those single notes to the left, and this one over to the right. And this can give you that kind of better texture with your guitar. Let's take a listen to this. Pretty cool, yeah? So there's our guitar recording. Now, we can also plug in and record a bass guitar. So let's do that now. All right, you know the drill by now. We're going to click Add Track. This time, we're going to click on the bass. And once again, we need to go to our source, make sure it's the same, the Scarlett 2i2 there, drop it to channel 2, which it's plugged into, hit the monitoring button, and there's our bass guitar ready to go. Once again, we have the tuner here. This time we can tune our bass guitar. So I'm going to get tuned up, and then we're going to choose our bass sound. We are tuned up. We are ready to rock and roll. So let's click on the effects button here, go to our presets, and this is a pretty funky bass. So why don't we go the funky bass sound? And now we've got a very cool funky bass sound with some feedback killer, multi-filter, EQ, digital compression, a whole bunch of stuff going on here. So we are ready to rock and roll and record in a bass part. Let's turn our metronome back on, get ready to hit our record button and play some bass. Maybe not. So there you go. We've recorded in some funky bass, and we can clip off this front bit and probably my little experimental bit at the end there as well. So now if we bring this back into our mix. Now, what you might be noticing there is that there is a little bit of a delay. So for some of the effects, like the bass that I've used for this one, there's a little extra latency. So that can actually be fixed pretty darn easily. What we need to do is make sure that our monitoring is off to start with. Make sure that our snap to grid is off. We can zoom in a little bit here. And what we need to do is just line up the start of this bass part to be right on that beat. So see how it's starting a little bit late there? That's how much latency we have. So if we just drag this back, now if we play it back, it's right there in the pocket. That guitar could probably come back a little bit as well, but because it's playing other sounds, it does all right there. So that's an option that you have there if you're finding that even with your best efforts, you're still getting a little latency in your recordings. So there you go. We've very quickly been able to record in our vocals using a microphone as well as our guitars and our bass. And don't forget that because you can use a microphone, you can record anything. You can record your singing, your acoustic guitar, your drum kit, whatever you can imagine. And you can not only just record the overall track, you can even record into the sampler as we showed in the previous video as well. In the next video, we're looking at mixing and effects, how we can use our presets and our effects to take these individual tracks and turn them into one harmonious piece of music. So stay tuned for that one. If you're in the future, it may be down in the description already. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.